Liverpool against Arsenal Sunday afternoon, 4:30. Both managers will say you can't win or lose the title in week 3. But just how significant will a win for either side be in this one, Scott?
Yeah, I think it will. Yeah, I mean, they're right. Obviously, it's still far too early in the season. But then come the end of the season, there might only be 3 points between them. So, you can look back at this, but obviously you can look back at many other games where they might have dropped points or gained points. But it's a statement, isn't it? It's about making a statement, especially if Arsenal go to Anfield and get a win there. And from a defensive point of view, they look a million miles ahead of Liverpool. The question is, are they as good going forward? Which they're probably not. And with the injuries they've got, they have got players to come in, and this is why one of the reasons that I went for Arsenal in the season preview, because I believe in terms of strength in depth, they've got the best squad in the Premier League. But yeah, it wouldn't determine it, of course, but it would make a massive statement if Arsenal could go to Anfield and get all 3 points.
I know it's early doors, but which of these two sides has impressed you more so far? I'm going to say Arsenal have been much better than Liverpool. Liverpool have conceded far too many goals, Crook.
Yeah, I think probably you'd rather buy a ticket to a Liverpool game. I think their games have been more exciting than Arsenal's so far, but I think defensively, Arsenal, as you say, look a lot more solid. I said it a week or so ago. I think they're going to be the team that concede the fewest goals this season because there are questions to answer, I think, defensively about the rest of the title rivals, and that might just give them the edge. And obviously, unlike Šeško, steps up to take the 10th penalty. Gyökeres has got a couple of goals under his belt now, so his confidence should be high. I think this is a good time to go to Liverpool. I think Liverpool's new signings are still settling in. I think they do look a lot more open now than they probably will be come the end of the season, and Arsenal can take advantage of that and maybe get a rare win at Anfield. Doesn't happen very often, does it?
A lot of concerns about Liverpool defensively so far. Shaky again in midweek, especially Konate, who hasn't had a great start to the season. Obviously, we thought that Gravenberch coming back into the team, or I asked the question actually a couple of times, will Gravenberch reintroduction into the team solve all those issues? The answer was pretty clear on Monday night. No, because Newcastle had 3 great chances in the first 20 minutes of that game and should have been in front before they went behind. Arsenal, how are they going to attack this Liverpool backline? Because they're not the kind of team that sits and breaks with speed, are they? But maybe with Eze in the team, they might do that, Scott.
Yeah, and I think what we saw is interesting. Arne Slot after the game saying this was not football, and he's kind of trying to say that was just a war of attrition and it was just set piece after set piece. We know that Arsenal are very good at set pieces. So there's no, I think, although they're not a counter-attacking side as such, I think they'll keep the ball better than Newcastle. Obviously, Newcastle went down to 10 men. I don't think it would be a question of just knocking long balls up there. But in terms of those set pieces or getting the ball in the right position, then in the box, I think they'll absolutely do as much as they can to replicate what Newcastle did. And if they can stay solid and not concede, then I can see them go and get the win needed. The problem for Liverpool is they need 3 goals to win a game at the moment, and they're not going to get 3 goals against Arsenal. So I can see almost, and it seems ridiculous to say, almost at best for Liverpool, a score draw, because I think they need to score. That's not an easy thing to do. But because they're so defensively vulnerable at the moment, Konate, I don't know what's happened to him. I thought he's been absolutely shocking in pretty much every game, including the Community Shield as well. So do they go out and get a centre-half like a Mark Guehi? But at this moment in time, it is the perfect time to be playing Liverpool.
A lot of concerns then about Liverpool's defence, and we mentioned the set pieces there, or Scott did. Arsenal have scored 33 corners in the Premier League since the start of 2023-24, more than any other side in Europe's Big 5 leagues. The Gunners have scored from a corner in each of their last 3 games. They've never done so in 4 games in a row. So everybody right now is going onto their fantasy team and captaining Gabriel or Saliba so that they get extra points at the weekend. Salah and Wirtz, anonymous midweek. I mean, the producers put that in the script. I don't think that's actually true about Wirtz. A lot of little passes that sort of come off, but in the first 20 minutes or so, the physicality of the game, I think, passed him by. Salah, now that's a different question because he really was anonymous up until the assist that he got, although really that should belong to Szoboszlai for the way that he jumped over the ball perfectly for Rio Ngamoa's finish. But actually, he hardly touched the ball in the game, Salah. He was absolutely not involved in it at all. And that would be a major concern because actually he's been quite quiet for a very long time now, Crook.
Yeah, dating back to the end of last season. Wasn't great against Bournemouth either on the opening day. And then annoyingly, on the subject of fantasy football, for those of us who didn't have him in the team, he pops up with his customary first day goal. And I think was credited with that assist in midweek. So he's still getting points. But yeah, that really doesn't tell the full story of his performances. And I've been massively underwhelmed by Florian Wirtz so far as well. You're going to have to give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt because it can take time to settle into the Premier League. But I think you asked the question, who are the favourites? I think certainly Liverpool come into the game with more early season question marks than Arsenal do.
A lot of the football people, Troy Deeney in particular, was quite impressed with Wirtz. He sort of, not necessarily on Monday night, but in the Bournemouth game. And I think even if you go back and watch the Community Shield, the first half an hour of that game, the link play with Ekitike is really good. I think he does a lot of the things that you don't see because it happens so quick and so fast, and he drops into those positions, and he's got brilliant feet. It is going to take him time before he really starts to shine in English football because it's a different level of physicality. You don't get games like Monday night, which was an absolute chaotic mess of a football match in the Bundesliga, certainly not with the level of physicality. I mean, the intensity of atmosphere, of course, you get at Dortmund and Schalke and, places like that. But honestly, it was a mad place to be on Monday night. Arsenal have got no Saka, no Odegaard. So do you just bring Eze in and Madueke in to replace them? Is that how you do it, Scott?
Yeah, I think so. I think Eze's ready. Desperate to try and make his Arsenal debut already. I think Madueke, I like Madueke and I didn't want to see him leave Chelsea. And I kind of felt sorry for him when Eze was signed because I'm thinking, well, how many minutes is he going to get? But he's already played. This is what it's all about. This is one of the major reasons why Arsenal didn't win the title because of injuries and the replacements coming in weren't as good. Look, he's not as good as Saka, but I think it's a great opportunity for both of them. And I think Eze will come in and he'll look like he's been an Arsenal player for 3 or 4 years. So in my opinion, yes, that's exactly what I do.
Maybe it's the transfer policy coming to fruition. What about the GCSE kids, Max Darman and Rio Ngamoa? Any chance of them sort of making a mark on this game for the second successive week, Crookster?
Well, they'll probably both be in the squad, I'd have thought. But yeah, certainly in the case of Dowman, I'm not sure that we're going to see a late cameo unless they're in a very comfortable position. It was a good game to bring him into last week. Might be a different story for Liverpool because they're still a bit short-handed, aren't they, in key positions? There's been more talk about Mark Guéhi overnight coming in and strengthening the back line, and we're still waiting to see what happens with Alexander Isak. The fact they're having to turn to a 16-year-old to win them the game on Monday night tells you the squad's a little bit light at this moment in time.
He's a good 16-year-old, though. And he'll be 17
by
the weekend.
He is, yeah.
He'll be 17 by the weekend, so you won't be able to say that.
Is that okay, then? Because you weren't necessarily happy about a 15-year-old being introduced to the Premier League.
I think that's been overblown. I asked you a question. So apparently nowadays, if you ask a question to someone, so if you say, are we entirely comfortable with a kid from year 10 playing in the Premier League? Apparently that's you saying you're not happy about it and you think it's absolutely disgraceful because, that's how the world works nowadays. I just asked the question, are we comfortable with a year 10 guy playing in the Premier League? Just because of the physicality thing. And actually, if you go into the safeguarding issue of it, this is a kid that has to change in a completely different changing room. He has to be shepherded to and from the ground by an appropriate adult. All the other things that have to go on that are very difficult and different to the experience of a Premier League footballer. So, yeah, okay, it was a question. Oh, sorry for asking a question. Should I question whether or not Ruben Amorim is getting his tactics right? Oh, you don't think he's not getting them right? No one does.
For the record, I'm not 100% comfortable with a 15-year-old playing in the Premier League. Forget all the safeguarding. I'm just thinking about his development.
And the physicality, Scott. What if he gets snapped in half by a big centre half?
Well, or even by a medium-sized small left back that wants to try and chop him down. And this can happen, but just from a development point of view, I know Ethan and Wary has done it and he's come through it. He went missing for not missing for a couple of years, but in terms of the first team squad, you just don't know where they are mentally. And I personally, I'm not for it unless you are a world-class talent and it stands out for itself. And look, maybe he will be in the future, but I'm not 100% with that either. It's slightly uncomfortable.